To present Steve for induction into the Gateway Sports Hall of Fame, his close friend and teammate, Matt Bond.
I'll echo Vern's sentiments and try to keep it short. I was busy over there crossing off things here and there. Steve may or may not want divulged. But I'm grateful to be here tonight to celebrate with so many great athletes, their families, friends, and coaches. And I'm especially honored to be here to induct Steve Truschel into the Gateway Sports Hall of Fame. I had the pleasure of being part of Steve's career from the very beginning. Steve and I started swimming together. I was probably 8, I think Steve was 7, at the Greater Pittsburgh Aquatic Club. And at the early stages, you would have hardly known Steve was bound for greatness in the pool. I think Coach Bass placed Steve in the plant lane, where he planted the swimmers that couldn't keep up with the workouts and had trouble making it across the pool. However, with the strong work ethic and a will to win that later became hallmarks of Steve's swimming career, that phase quickly passed. I first remember Steve having success at the Gateway Heights Summer Club under Coach Petrillo, where he discovered his skill in breaststroke. I was able to confirm tonight that Steve's actually still on the record board there in multiple events in multiple places. From this early success, Steve and I joined what was known as the Pittsburgh Aquatic Club, where we trained under one of those infamous coaches that I think every sport has, whose name was Fred Lewis. And he enjoyed torturing us, to say the least. He equated success with distance, and I think one day he decided to test that, and I think we swam 15 miles in that single day. Certain people responded to that type of training. Steve was one of them. After a few short years at the Pitt Aquatic Club, Steve then was ready to explode on both the high school and the national scene. As a freshman, he had the second fastest time in the 100 breaststroke, and by his sophomore year, he owned the Gateway High School record in that event. At the same time, he was qualifying for both junior and senior nationals while setting records in the breaststroke events within our age group within the region. Now, competing at senior nationals is probably the highest level you can achieve in our sport next to the Olympics. And that gives you an indication of how great a swimmer Steve was for us. His sophomore year looked to finish strong until an unfortunate mishap in the pool that I was also part of. Steve and I collided during some backstroke training. And if anyone ever saw me do backstroke, they'd understand why. He injured his shoulder, which affected him for the rest of the year and for the year to come. But with true grit and determination, Steve continued to compete and actually qualified for both Whitbills and states that year. It took him almost a year to come back from that injury, but by his junior and senior years, he was winning Whitbills and set the Whitbill record in the 100 breaststroke for years to come. His senior year, he even earned All-American honorable mention in the breaststroke event. There were 3 things we could always count on for Steve as a teammate: his ability to make us laugh, his ability to carry a tune on the bus, and a guaranteed victory in our dual meets. There are a few of us here tonight that almost drowned due to Steve's antics on the pool deck. He'd make us laugh during the 200 IM and the breaststroke leg. He'd be at the far end of the pool, away from Coach Petrillo and where anyone else could see him. He'd get up there right next to the pool, and he'd just start making noises, calling you names, and you'd just start laughing. This was in the middle of a meet and competing. He also convinced me during one year at States to dye my hair red. I didn't think that that would be a good idea. Way to set myself apart. I'm glad there's no pictures around. We also had a game for 4 years with Steve, trying to find creative ways for him to change his bathing suit on the pool deck without anybody knowing. Whether it was behind a chalkboard, a towel, the blocks, it was an ongoing game and made the events a lot more fun. I think I now know the words to almost every classic rock song, thanks to Steve and the long bus rides to and from meets. They wouldn't let me sing. They learned the first night that that wasn't something that was good. And finally, as proof of that certain victory, Steve never lost the 100 breaststroke in 4 years of high school. Every meet we competed in, he swam that event, he won. Having swum with Steve for so many years, there were always two things that I admired about him. His ability to work harder than anyone else, and his will to win during meets and competition. We used to tease Steve for his ability to turn everyday events into training exercises. We'd be walking down the street, and next thing you know, we'd be doing fireman carries, squats with each other on our backs, and other exercises that Steve would devise. Coach DeMeo, who's going to be inducted later tonight, was famous for torturing us in the dungeon, lifting weights. But even this wasn't enough for Steve. He had to have his own dungeon built in his basement, where he then also tortured us lifting weights. He even took nutrition to the extreme, when to most of us, nutrition was eating a spaghetti dinner the night before a meet, and the rest of the time we were eating McDonald's and pizza. Like most great athletes, Steve seemed to have that extra gear that would propel him to victory. Again, he never lost the 100 breaststroke in a meet, and he also succeeded in many other events. I truly believe that he would have had success regardless of what event he trained for. He was that type of athlete. Steve was the embodiment of the student athlete and what most of us aspired to be in the pool. He did Gateway High School proud during his 4 years. He was a great teammate and always a close friend. I'll now turn it over to Steve.